Okay, hi everyone, I'm SmithyQ, and I'm back with another video analysis, where today we're going to discuss the ideas of candidate moves, and in particular, how changing the move order of our candidate moves during calculation can drastically change the results. How you can have something go from not working to almost working to, well, we'll see. This is a position that we're going to discuss today. I shared it in the ChessGoals Discord server. People were analyzing it. People agreed it was really interesting. Has a really fantastic series of moves that are coming up. Very few people got the right move. So I invite you now to spend as much time as you want, pause the video, take a look, figure out first what your general evaluation is as white, and then what would you do? Not just one move, but what's the series of moves? And then what I'm going to do in this video is explain the suggested thought process. Because it's not enough just to, guess or get one move right randomly. We want to try and do it systematically, so that way we can apply the same thought process to different positions. So let's take a look. What do you see when you look at this position? Just about everyone agreed about the general plan, or the general idea here, what white should be doing. Because when you look at it, white seems to have a lot of kingside potential. The queen is staring through at the king, there's some weak squares here, the knight can jump forward, and if the knight gets taken, that'll open up lines for the bishop. We also have this rook. It can do a rook lift, or maybe it can go all the way down here into the 7th rank potentially. There's all these ideas. Further, if you look at black's pieces, he's got most of his pieces, and certainly all of his minor pieces, they're on the queen side. The only piece on the king side is a rook, but rooks on the back rank are notoriously bad defenders. So all of this suggests that it doesn't, say that white definitely has something, but white should be looking in this direction. And all of these ideas, all of these green arrows, these are our candidate moves. These are the ideas that we want to look at and we want to explore. Now, it's fully possible none of them work. And if none of them work, that's fine. Maybe we could prepare them. Maybe we can double rooks on the e file, or maybe we could do something like h4, h5, try and soften black up that way, and then continue. But the first step, here it is. We've looked generally. We know the moves we want to do. Now, step 2, let's calculate. Let's dig in deep and see if one of these works. If it does, we win the game. So what do we start with? Well, the move that most people suggested on the Discord was queen f6. I think we can see why. The queen's on a very juicy square here. We're threatening rook e7. It's just sitting very pretty. All of a sudden, we can maybe move the knight in, and then we were threatening mate. And if it gets taken, for example, knight h5, boom. Imagine that was a better arrow coming into h7. Things can get very bad for black. The problem with queen f6 is that black has a fairly obvious reply, is he'll just move the knight right back to e8 and hits our queen. If our queen just meekly retreats, then why did we move to f6 in the first place? Now we could get rid of this knight. We could sacrifice. Okay. So now we got our queen in. What's the next step? Well, the candidate moves we were looking at, we imagine the knight coming in, we imagine the bishop coming in. Let's start with the knight. Here we go, threatening mate on g7. The only thing that black can do, the only move black has, is here. But now, how do you follow up as white? We've made a lot of sacrifices, and we don't actually have a lot of firepower left. We only have the bishop and the queen in the attack, and if we were to try and combine them, for example here on h7, well then black has a very standard defensive resource. This is going to f5 blunts the bishop, so the bishop stares at the pawn. Queen is defending laterally on the 2nd rank here, and white has nothing. So that means queen to h6 doesn't work, and in fact the best that white has is simply to accept a draw, where we go and offer perpetual check like this. Now this isn't such a bad thing. This is the first variation that we looked at. We threw a bunch of material at black. We're down a lot of material, and the worst case scenario is it's a draw. That's actually a good thing. Or potentially, that can give us hope. This sort of gives us permission, or even the obligation, to look deeper. Because maybe if we change things just a little bit, instead of being a draw, well, it might be something much greater. So let's take a look. Let's back up. So starting again, just for a refresher, we've got queen f6. He brings the knight in. Okay, so we don't want to retreat the queen, so let's sacrifice. We were looking at knight h5. That didn't work. What about knight f5? We're threatening mate. That's pretty good. After take, we could easily imagine coming in with f5. Oh my gosh, that's tempy. Maybe the rook will slide over. Maybe bishop takes h7. Back to the very calm and obvious queen e7. It not only hits our queen, but the queen is also eyeing g5. And so we don't even have the queen g5 check anymore. Again, we're running out of attackers. And so, unfortunately, after knight f5, it seems, again, the best that we have is just this perpetual. Okay. So that doesn't work. Let's try the other move order. So sacrificing the bishop here doesn't make any sense, but maybe this does. Because now, after take, the knight could take here, or even just come over here. Boom. Threatening mate. Oh, and there's nothing black can do about that. GG, right? Not so fast, because black doesn't have to take it. Queen e7, again, that defensive move, hits our queen, and there's nothing here. We're already down the exchange. We're getting pushed back. That's not very good. Okay. So close, but no cigar. So queen f6 first didn't work. So we tried that. Doesn't work. Well, imagine that was a redder arrow. Doesn't work. Cross it off. So what do we do next? Well, we could keep trying. Let's change the move order. We could throw in, knight f5. Again, threatening mate. After take. We would love to take with the bishop, but, well, the queen defends it, so that doesn't work. And if we throw the queen in, trying to set that up, again, knight e8. If we retreat the queen, that's bad. And if we sacrifice, well, the best we have, this is the exact same position, just a perpetual. Is the right idea starting to come in now? We looked at the queen first. We looked at the knight first. What if we tried the bishop first? It's actually funny. The queen is trapped in a bizarre way. There's no escape from this, so he has to take. Now what? What do we do? If we try, again, we can't do this. Whoops, that's just losing a piece. We could try this, getting mate here on g7. But again, there's that defensive idea that we saw. f6, it blunts our queen. His queen is able to come in. Now, true enough, we have a check. Boom. And then if I can get the queen over there. So we picked up some material. Our rook is threatening to come into f7. His king's exposed. This looks really good. This looks really good for white. But let's back up. Is it the best? Again, change the move order. Instead of starting with the knight, what if we start with the queen? Now there is no f6. And we still have the threats of moving the knight in, threatening mate, or moving the rook in and threatening the queen and just devastation. After knight goes to e8, it's defending g7, it's hitting the queen with check. Take, and now there's knight f5. There's no stopping the mate unless black wants to give up the queen. But we could be, even better about this. Bring the knight to h5. Now he can't even sacrifice the queen, and it's mate next move. Do we see that? Isn't that amazing? All these ideas are working in different ways. Just didn't work, and then we just, like a Rubik's Cube, found just the right combination, and everything pays off. Now we can throw up our hands, we can celebrate, do a cartwheel, but let's hold on. After queen f6, black isn't forced to play knight e8. And one of the hardest parts about attacking is that there's often so many different defensive options available. Knight e6 is possible. Knight e6 was played in the game. And now the idea is that if we were trying to sacrifice, do we see what happens here? Is that, again, the f-pawn is able to move, the queen slides over laterally to defend, and the rook's hitting our queen, so we're losing time. Now, we're still going to sacrifice that knight, don't worry. Again, the move order is so important. Let's start with knight takes f5. I drew some arrows. Let me just erase those for a second. So the threat right now is knight h6 mate. Okay. We're also potentially threatening this, and we could just even move either rook up and over and mate over there. Now, in the game, black played h5, so that way now this would no longer be mate because the h7 square is available. But white found a really simple way of ending the game. There's the sacrifice. I drew a whole bunch of arrows. We can basically ignore those and just look at the position after knight e7. It's check. The king only has one square to go to, and that would allow g6, h6, and that's mate. Queen and knight are covering all the squares. And so that means after knight e7, well, if you move the king, it's mate. Black is forced to give up the queen, and then he resigned just a few moves later. And just for the record, this wasn't even the best white could have backing up. Instead of rook takes e6, the computer says that rook d3 is about a mate in 13, but you know, winning the queen, getting a winning position is still very good. If it's good enough for a 2500 rated grandmaster, that's good enough for us. And really, just like I said at the very beginning, if you calculate and then you find a perpetual check, it kind of gives you hope, because you know that you're not on the wrong track. If you calculate a line and it just loses, okay, that's bad. If you calculate a line and it's almost winning, it's perpetual, okay, it digs in deep. You calculate a line where you can win a queen, well, you don't need to then go back and see, maybe I can get checkmate. Winning a queen is still very, very good. And it's going to win a practical game all the time. And then just sort of the last thing I want to do. First off, so that completes the lesson. It's showing how all these ideas combine. Just slightly different ways. We find the magic touch, the magic combination. There we go. So how do you do this in your own games? Because that's really what we want. Well, let's back all the way up. The first step is being able to see all the candidates, seeing all the ideas. We can see the bishops. We can see the queen. We see how the knight wants to jump in. We see how the rooks could possibly slide over. All these ideas we're playing in to the eventual final combination. You see everything, and then you try it in different ways. And then, if you're fortunate, the position, not every position is going to have a tactical finish, but when there is, you will find it. Now, I said this is step 1 and step 2, but really, there's something greater, or there's sort of a preliminary step, or a preliminary skill. In this position, just for reference, this game is played between Michael Hoffman, who is a 2500 rated grandmaster, against Matthias Kerber, who is an 1800 rated amateur player. And up to here, it's move 21, and black is played absolutely excellent. The position is equal. It's even. And then here it is on the 21st move. Black made a mistake. Not an obvious mistake, but it's a mistake enough that a 2500 rated grandmaster was able to see and then capitalize with that absolutely brilliant bishop f5 move. And so that is when we talk about different skill sets, this is one. To be a good chess player is being able to see all the candidate moves and then being able to vary the move order to see what works. But there's almost a sub-skill. Maybe if there's interest, I'll create another video on this. It's the idea of being able to recognize mistakes, see mistakes. Because the position from here to here doesn't look like a big mistake, but it's the losing move. And being able to recognize these types of mistakes is going to really increase your chess ability. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, chess is being able to see mistakes and being able to punish and capitalize them. Because if you can do that consistently, you're going to become one heck of a chess player. So again, if there's interest, this is a topic I'm really interested in. I'm quite passionate about, in all honesty. It's one of my favorite parts about chess. If you want more, let me know, and I'll make more. Otherwise, I think that's it. Hopefully you found this helpful. Again, let me know. Love to hear your feedback. Otherwise, this is Smithy Q. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.